Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And joining me tonight, Chris Fedor, somehow still in South Beach, but it's coming after the Cavs' victory over the Miami Heat 130-116. And Chris, coming into Wednesday night's contest, we knew it was going to be a tall task. This Cleveland Cavaliers team was missing Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Max Strus, and Jalen Tyson. And we didn't even know if Larry Nance Jr. was going to be available coming into the game. And yet, this team was ready for battle. And from start to finish, there was tug and pull at the score. Obviously, the Cavs did not have a lead until the fourth quarter, but you could feel that this Cavs team simply did not want to go away. And to me, how it ended, how the Cavs were able to put up a double-digit victory without so many stars after losing an overtime thriller just 2 days ago, was one of the best games, one of the most fun games that we've gotten to witness for this Cavs team. And again, it did not feature any of the Cavs' main stars aside from core four member Jarrett Allen. And we cannot sneeze at the performance from Jarrett Allen because Jarrett Allen came in and said, well, okay, nobody else is here to help me out in the painted area. I'm going to lock it down. 30 points, 10 rebounds, and this guy was doing it all, particularly in the fourth quarter to help close it out. And of course, Chris, that comes as a little extra notion to what we were talking about on our last podcast after Jarrett Allen was not a significant feature in the fourth quarter against the Miami Heat on Monday and hasn't been a fixture in the fourth quarter since last year. What did you think about tonight's game, the competitiveness, the level of desperation that the Cavs played in as an underdog, maybe for the first time this season, and just how much fun it was watching it in Miami, in South Beach, with one of the best courts we've seen all year?
Look what happens when Jarrett Allen plays in the fourth quarter. That's all I'm going to say. 7.5 minutes in the fourth quarter, made every shot that he took, every free throw that he took. 12 points in the fourth quarter, plus 10 in the fourth quarter. And it's interesting because before the game, Kenny Atkinson, I asked Kenny specifically why he hasn't been playing Jarrett in fourth quarters. And what he mentioned is that a lot of teams against the Cavs are downsizing. They're playing smaller, they're playing faster. And he has felt at the beginning of the season that he needed to match that. Tonight, Kenny did something different. He got proactive. He made the Heat react to him. He said, hey, look, all right, Miami, you want to downsize, you want to play small. We're going to play bigger. We're going to use Jarrett to our advantage. We're going to capitalize on the fact that you don't have a lot of size out there. We're going to get Jarrett the ball inside the paint. We're going to get him early seals, and he's going to score that way. So I like the fact that Kenny countered basically what he didn't counter the other night. I mean, the opportunity was there the other night against Miami. The opportunity has been there at various points at the beginning of the season to say, we're going to do what we do, and we're not going to react to you. This time, it was Jarrett Allen and the Cavs and their size making the Heat change some of their personnel and some of their style in the fourth quarter, and that played into the advantage of the Cavs. Beyond that, Craig Porter Jr. did something that no Cavalier player has ever done with a stat line that has only been done off the bench in the NBA twice now. Clifford Robinson was the other one that did it back in the 90s. So for Craig Porter Jr. to seize the moment, it's kind of what Kenny Atkinson has been trying to pull out of him, right? It's why Kenny Atkinson and Craig Porter Jr. had some difficult conversations in the offseason, some heart-to-heart conversations, man-to-man conversations. But this is what you want from your backup point guard or your third point guard. This is what Ty Jerome did at various points last year for the Cavs. He swung games, or he went out and just single-handedly stole victories that looked improbable for the Cavs last year. And that's what you want from your backup point guard or your third point guard. And Craig Porter Jr., it wasn't just him. Other guys stepped up. Naquan Tomlin played big. Luke Travers had the go-ahead shot that gave the Cavs their first lead of the game. Thomas Bryant brought a bunch of energy. Tyrese Proctor, with his shot making, his ability to create separation, break down defenders, helping the Cavs organize, run some offense. Lonzo Ball with his passing to Jarrett Allen. As Kenny Atkinson said, all 11 guys that played contributed. And that's the mark of a basketball team. That is a total team win. But Craig Porter Jr., to me, Ethan, is the most important aspect of this because he's the every night rotation guy, because he's probably going to get more minutes here as the Cavs figure out what they're going to do about Darius Garland and his toe. He's probably going to get more minutes as Donovan Mitchell gets these rest nights throughout the course of the regular season so that they can manage him in a way that they want to manage him. And if Craig delivers the way that he did tonight, and it doesn't have to be the same exact stat line, but if he gives the Cavs what they need, then Kenny Atkinson's going to have more confidence in him. Kenny Atkinson's going to keep him in the every night rotation when the team is close to full strength. Kenny Atkinson's going to feel like, I don't have to push Darius Garland back. I can make Donovan Mitchell have these nights off every now and then because I have a guy who is calm, composed, focused, can organize us, can defend his butt off, can do the little things that we need from him. So I thought, Craig Porter Jr. seizing the moment to me was the story from tonight's win against the Cavs. As Kenny Atkinson labeled it, it was a heroic performance by Craig. He stole the win from Miami.
It's a guy that we've talked about this season already, right? Craig Porter Jr. is someone that has had a shorter leash when it comes to what Kenny Atkinson has viewed him this season. And we know this because of how Kenny Atkinson perceives him to be effective. And that's on the defensive end of the floor. And we can talk about the first half of the game where Craig Porter Jr. was perfect from the field and had 6 of 6, 3 of 3 from deep, 16 points. And that was all in the first half. So you mean to tell me he had 3 points in the second half and nobody noticed? That's what an impact player does. That is how you change the tide of a game, particularly if you're getting to spots and things aren't going your way, or if you were able to process the game and find ways to create options for other teammates. He finished the game with 9 assists. Let's just go through this stat line real quick for Craig Porter Jr., Chris, because as you mentioned, this is the first player in Cavs history to finish a game with at least 19 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 4 blocks. And Clifford Robinson, who did it in 1993, had 22 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 4 blocks. And that's the first player in NBA history to do so. Craig became the second tonight. And I just think when you talk about what the Cavs knew coming into this game, they needed a creator of offense. And Craig Porter Jr., his rookie season, was known for getting to his spots, was known for getting into the lane and finding angles to be able to create against taller opponents. But if you look back to Wichita State, Craig Porter Jr. finished his senior season leading the team in rebounding, assists, blocks, and steals all in the same season. He is a player that the Cavs knew when they went and got him a few years ago that could impact on both ends of the floor. And Chris, you mentioned it, Kenny Atkinson talked about it, how these harsh or realistic conversations about work ethic, about body control, about getting your body to the point where you can do whatever you want with it and play to the vigor and the intensity that you want for all of the game. And again, Craig Porter Jr. played the most minutes tonight for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you couldn't tell because even down to the last minute, he was still doing everything on both ends of the floor. And I think that's telling to the work that he put in the offseason and what Kenny Atkinson talked about.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with Craig, like you said, it's just finding a way to impact the game. And it doesn't have to be scoring all the time. It doesn't have to be passing. It's just, what does the game call for? And it felt like tonight the game called for energy, defense, disruption, all-out effort, heart, determination, guts, just being ready for your moment. And Craig answered. Kenny Atkinson said that Craig had 11 deflections. It was disruptive defense that kind of took an offense that has been one of the best in the entire NBA, out of their usual flow, out of their rhythm. It forced them to go other directions. It forced them to start their offense a little bit later because he was picking up full court, because he was pressuring guys at the point of attack, and all these different things that sometimes go unnoticed, that sometimes don't show up in the box score. That's how Craig is going to have to make his living. That's what he's going to have to be for this team. He doesn't have the offensive gifts necessarily, the microwave scoring ability of somebody like Ty Jerome, right? Ty's niche was very, very different in the backup point guard role. So Craig's going to have to do the TJ McConnell type stuff that TJ does for Indiana. Because that's what the Cavs need from him. That's what the Cavs need out of his position. And I think he's starting to understand that. And then if you get the open threes that he's able to knock down, the drives to the basket that he's able to finish, maybe some of those mid-range pull-ups that he can knock down when things get a little bit clunky on offense, then that stuff becomes a bonus. But, Kenny has been talking over and over and over again, Ethan, about like the quintessential role player. And you saw that kind of impact from Craig tonight. And it bodes well for him moving forward. And I think it shows a level of maturity, a level of focus, and a level of understanding of what it is the Cavs need from him.
And Chris, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I just want to get into just the performances from this bench. And obviously, as we mentioned, this Cavs team didn't have the star players. So the Cavs went and started with Lonzo Ball, Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, Jarrett Allen, and DeAndre Hunter. And those guys, while they might have racked up some points, were not the plus-minus leaders of the game. The plus-minus leaders of the game were Craig Porter Jr., Naquan Tomlin, Tyrese Proctor, and Thomas Bryant. And all of them played at least 12 minutes. And their impact in different ways should elongate how this Cavs team looks at them when it comes to the later bench roster of this team. And I think it just gives more trust to Kenny Atkinson to, hey, we need more defensive intensity here. Thomas Bryant, get your energy, happy self out there and see what happens, right? We need more rebounding. Naquan Tomlin grabbed 4 offensive boards, 6 total rebounds in just 17 and a half minutes tonight. That's huge. Obviously, the offensive creation and the ball handling that Tyrese Proctor displayed tonight was insane, creating enough space to step back into that patented three-point shot that he loves so much and is hoping is going to start falling on a more consistent basis. But this bench unit was the story tonight. Obviously, Craig Porter Jr. is the cream of the crop of that. But what this Cavs team has not been known for to start the season was bench points. And that's been lacking severely. So for them to kind of switch that this game when they were going up against basically the same Miami Heat team that they did on Monday, and the Cavs ended up winning that bench point battle 51-32. That was flipped on its head on Monday. We cannot gloss over, especially when it comes to the big picture of the season and the Cavs believing that most players on this team can make an impact come playoff time, whether that's just in spurts. And that's part of the reason that they went and got Thomas Bryant, because of what they saw in the Indiana Pacers last year and how they utilized him as well.
Yeah, I thought Naquan was actually one of the more important players that the Cavs went to when they kind of went away from Luke Travers and went to Naquan in that spot instead, and they put more size, more length, more versatility, more rebounding out there on the floor. Like, it just did different things for the Cavs, and it did different things to the Miami Heat. And so I think we have to give Naquan a lot of credit. His energy, you could tell that was infectious as well. So again, as Kenny Atkinson said, everybody that he called on tonight did their job. Sam Merrill wasn't very good. He was 1 of 10 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3-point range. I mean, for them to win a basketball game with him playing like that, with him shooting like that, but he still found a way to make an impact with his gravity, with his floor spacing, with his movements, picked up a charge at a critical point. So this was a total team win, and I think it just shows, obviously it shows the depth of this roster, but it shows the character of this team too. It shows the toughness, it shows the resiliency, it shows the grit that they have. It shows the guts of this team. But I think the Cavs have been trying to say, like, hey, we're a certain kind of team. We have a certain kind of mentality. We have a certain kind of credo. And tonight was evidence of that. And I give them a lot of credit. It's just one game. It's just the 8th win of the season. But it was a really, really impressive performance. It was a good night for the organization, top to bottom. And I also have to give Darius Garland a lot of credit, Max Strus a lot of credit, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, all the guys that were not in uniform and able to actually be out there. Jalen Tyson has concussion-like symptoms. He can't be in loud arenas with bright lights and stuff like that. So all the guys who were not in uniform for the Cavs, being there, providing pointers, encouragement, being an extension of the coaching staff, cheerleaders. There was a moment where Donovan Mitchell pulled Craig Porter Jr. to the side, and they talked about breaking things down in the pick and roll situation. And on the following possession, the Cavs got a bucket, and Donovan went nuts. That is what you want from a team. And Kenny Atkinson said a post game, and I don't know that it's entirely true, but he said not every team in the NBA has that. And I think he meant to that level, right? Other team, Bam was sitting on the side. Tyler Hero was doing the same thing for the Heat. But I think he meant to the level of just how these guys were into the game and into it for their teammates. That was really, really good to see. Because Donovan went to Louisville on his off day, and everybody knows that. He could have went back to Cleveland. Could have, but he didn't. Came back to Miami. He got a workout in earlier this morning after shoot-around. Darius Garland knew that he wasn't going to play because he was evaluated by the medical team. He could have went back to Cleveland and started treatment a little bit earlier, rested, recovered, whatever. So to see the level of support and the level of encouragement and the level of togetherness that this team has, I thought that was really, really encouraging.
What this Cavs team has kind of created is an environment of chemistry, of camaraderie, of friendship. And sure, people can laugh at the power of friendship, but when it's also coupled with like players on the bottom of the rotation or even just in the bench players that have that dog mentality, like whenever I get in the game, I'm going to kill, that is different, right? Because you have the chemistry to have these conversations and the camaraderie to have these tough conversations. But it's also like when I see you get in the game, I'm going to have a different level of trust than other teams might in some of their end of bench players. And you got to see it tonight. Obviously, Naquan Tomlin had a big one, double tip, then put back, flexed on the defender, and Darius Garland kind of ran over to him and was like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we want. And also in that mix was Thomas Bryant trying to grab the rebound. Obviously, we talk about the camaraderie around Tyrese Proctor and how every time the ball went up, Donovan Mitchell was acting like the ball was going in. Like there is just a thought process. And maybe this is what Kenny Atkinson was kind of alluded to is like, there's not necessarily always this belief, 14, 15 man roster that everybody can contribute when they get on the floor. And it feels like this Cavs team in particular believes that because of how they built it, but also the work that everybody has put behind the scenes that they're witnessing and then seeing come to fruition on the court against a good team and a team that beat them 2 days ago with their stars on the floor.
Yeah, and the other thing is, look, these guys are fighting, some of these guys are fighting for their NBA lives. They're fighting for minutes. But they didn't lead at any point, Ethan, in the first 3 quarters. That can wear on you, right? That can break you. That can be like, all right, we don't have Donovan. We don't have Evan. We don't have Max. We don't have Darius. We don't have Jalen. It's just not happening tonight. It's just not going to happen. And Miami was ahead 92-78 by 14 points with 3:57 to go in the third quarter. Over the next 15 minutes and 57 seconds, the Cavs, the depleted Cavs, -5 every night rotation players, outscored Miami 52-24. I mean, think about that. That's absurd. It's absurd to think about that. But that's what they did. And again, they deserve all the credit for that level of toughness and that level of resiliency, that level of fight, that level of determination. It's what it's going to take for these guys to stay in the NBA, to maybe possibly get minutes, to maybe possibly work their way into the rotation at some point in their career. Who knows if it's going to happen? Maybe it doesn't ever happen in Cleveland. Maybe it happens elsewhere. I do want to say before we get out of here that there is one thing to keep an eye on here. Sam Merrill took a hard fall. He was slow to get up. He was in pain in the locker room tonight. He had ice wrapped around his hip, his side area. So when the injury report comes out tomorrow, just keep an eye on that and see if Sam Merrill's going to be on that injury report. This was the first night of a back-to-back. The Cavs are going to get home really, really late into Cleveland. The tip time on Thursday is 7 o'clock instead of 7:30 for some reason. So that's a quick turnaround. And Sam was clearly in some discomfort in the locker room afterwards. So just keep an eye on that. And after that hard fall, even before that fall, he wasn't making shots. But after that hard fall, he wasn't moving the same way either. And you could tell, even at moments in the fourth quarter where Kenny kind of went back to some of his regulars, even when Sam was out there, he just wasn't moving the same. He was making an impact. I think he was making a difference with his spacing and the attention that he draws every single time he's out there on the floor, but he just wasn't moving the same kind of way. So you could tell that he was laboring during the game and then after the game. So just keep an eye on that.
And this comes after Sam previously injured his hip, and it forced Sam Merrill to miss a few games, which is what is most important in this context. So a recurring injury, who knows, especially coming back relatively soon from that. And hips can be difficult, especially when you're tasked with being the point of attack defender against Norman Powell, who can get to the lane and can draw some contact relatively easily. But Chris, I think this Cavs team might need to play with a little bit more of that underdog desperation mentality on every given night. And maybe that's not necessarily the players, but Kenny Atkinson going away from what he's seeing and what the Cavs want to do big picture and being like, hey, this isn't working. I'm going to go to a lineup that we haven't seen yet or done yet. And obviously the experimentation period Kenny Atkinson has done. But tonight, one of the best lineups that the Cavs orchestrated, Jarrett Allen, Craig Porter Jr., Naquan Tomlin, Dean Wade, and Tyrese Proctor. I don't think you're ever seeing that with the 5 guys that were out tonight if they're healthy. That lineup alone had an 88.9 net rating over 4 minutes of playing time tonight. It had a 133.3 offensive rating and a defensive rating of 44.4. Ridiculous. This isn't going to happen every time they get on the floor. Sure, this isn't going to happen every time any individual player gets on the floor. But I do think that the level of desperation, the level of underdog, the level of we're being counted out is something that this Cavs team needs to take going forward and cannot get complacent because we know that this team is hungry and competitive, but at sometimes it feels like they can get comfortable. And I don't know if that's something that the Cavs want to continue to harbor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be hard for them to manufacture that if we're being perfectly honest, because they just don't care enough right now. They don't care enough to manufacture that right now. I think it'll be interesting to monitor as the season goes on if they start to get a little bit more of that as the playoffs get closer, as their proving ground comes, because they know it's not about the regular season for them. The regular season for them is about experimenting with certain things, figuring out what can work, what can't work, lineups, combinations. It's about developing habits. That's important. Getting more comfortable in your system offensively and defensively. Trying some things defensively to see if they can work for you. Different types of zones, maybe. But I just think when you're a team like the Cavs and it's finals or bust, it's hard to play 82 games with that kind of edge, with that kind of focus, with that kind of fire, with that underdog mentality. Because they're just not built that kind of way. That's the other thing. They don't really have the personnel to do that, to be that. It's interesting because, just as an example, the Oklahoma City Thunder. One of the season predictions that I made is that they were going to win 70 games. They were going to be the next NBA team to win 70 games because playing hard is who they are. Playing hard is what they do. The Cavs are more like, again, this goes back to their identity and the conversation that we had all of last year. It's more free-flowing offense. There's more flamboyance to what they do. There's more flair to what they do. And they're just not a play harder than the opponent every single night type team. They're just not. That's Detroit. That's Detroit with JB Bickerstaff. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because they just have a team full of dudes that are wired that way, that have made their mark in the NBA that way. That's not Darius Garland. That's not how he's made his mark in the NBA. That's not how he's become a 2-time All-Star. That's not Evan Mobley. It's just not. So I think when you have this kind of roster with this group of personnel and it's NBA Finals or bust, like it's really, really hard to play with that edge that you're talking about on a Thursday night against the Toronto Raptors or a Saturday night against the Charlotte Hornets. It's different when it's Naquan Tomlin because tonight may be the only shot he gets for the next 2 weeks. It's different when it's Luke Travers because this might be the only shot he gets for the next month. You know what I'm saying? So, I think the personnel that was available to them played part in that urgency, that ferocity that we saw, that focus, that determination that we saw. It's not to say that the Cavs they can win games other ways, right? There are times where they're going to be behind in games and they're going to show a level of resiliency and they're going to show a level of fight. But I don't think it's going to be with the consistency that you're talking about. I just don't think they care enough. And I don't think they have the personnel to be that type of team.
I don't disagree with you, Chris, but maybe tonight's performance lights a fire in certain matchups. But there's also the other side of that coin, which Kenny Atkinson talked about last year, which comes to caring too much for a certain particular matchup. Over-preparing, over-caring, overdoing it. And I'm interested to see what version of this Cavs team we're saying that they are by the end of the season. But with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can send in your weekly Hey Chris questions, but the only way to do so is signing up for a 14-day free trial or visiting cleveland.com/Cavs and clicking on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word stop. It's easy, but we can say that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.